Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditam Mastuma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us. May our work, may we work together with great vigor. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily disagree with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So this is the Vedanta question-answer session, as usual, every Sunday. So I'll keep quiet while questions are raised. There is one question that has been asked here, so I'll keep that in reserve. And if there are other questions, I'll interweave things. So any questions? Don't ask me the population of Nigeria. I still have no idea.
Swamiji, I have a question I wanted to ask some time ago.
Very good.
It is about the impact of the material environment on our spiritual practice, and how do we make it work for us rather than against us. So I can give an example. Many of us have left our country of birth, and we miss family, we miss food and so on. And in certain environments, it's very easy to feel energetic and joyful and upbeat and see everything in a positive light. But in others, even depending on the weather, if the sun shines, every cell is thriving. But if the weather is dull, we feel kind of low on energy. And this also has an impact on our spiritual practice, because in some environments, it's very easy to sit and meditate, or it's very easy to feel joyful. And in others, it really has a physical impact on us, even if psychologically we can control, and we are aware of our thoughts, and we are aware of that we can change this cycle of thought. It's a lot easier in some environments than others. So I was wondering about this, and how do we make it work so that it helps us rather than hinders us in our spiritual practice.
Okay, very good, very good. This is where our philosophy can have some practical application. We tend to think that the world we live in is all the thing that we have, but to the human understanding, we think that the Lord's power appears as nature. This we call Prakriti. And it has a manifesting power. And nature, as we call it, has some undercurrent of waves. Science actually calls it oscillations, because they go up and down like this. These are the divine graces to the human mind that can automatically combine and recombine. And her lower aspect, feminine, Prakriti, her lower aspect is what we call our world. If we don't think in these ways, then we'll get caught up in this environment that we ourselves created, because all these forces are drawn in by our thinking and our intentions. Create a suitable body for us and a suitable environment in which we can operate. How to change that? Change our thinking. As soon as we change our thinking, we change all these oscillating forces that come from nature and come back from an original thinker called cosmic mind. We can call this God. So we have to change our attitudes and change our thinking. The problem that you're describing, don't think I'm immune from it. I come from Zimbabwe. I'm an African. So I was down in Cork recently, and so my hostess made a specific effort. She said, tell me all about Zimbabwean food. Naturally, we had to go to the great cosmic source of everything called YouTube. And there we found out all the Zimbabwean recipes. And then much easier for you to follow this. So we followed that. So for the first time since 2006, I had some Zimbabwean food. more or less. It wasn't exactly the right ingredients. You can't get all the ingredients here in this country, see. But the point is, am I here as a punishment to say, see, Lord brought me here and said, I'm going to keep you away from delicious Zimbabwean food and put you into this weather where you can hardly see the sun. Fortunately, our last few days, we've had a good dose of the sun. So it's wonderful, all good. We've taken advantage of that. And in a strange place, strange food, strange traditions, in the sense that even since 2006, I haven't really fully understood the Irish psyche. I'm still learning about it. And how much more difficult if your culture is radically different, you know. So we have to make an effort. But we also have to understand, or we have to ask the question, am I here by accident? Or is this my divine destination? Is this where God put me? And everything I see around, should I now not register it to him and his glory? And if I don't do that, then things might become difficult. And it's easy then to bring up disturbances of the mind. What are disturbances of the mind? According to our Vedanta philosophy, all the disturbances of the mind and its practical application yoga, all the disturbances of the mind come in the form of waves called desires. Seemingly some kind of gap inside me that I have to fulfill from the outside is called desires. As soon as the desires are calmed and gone, then there's the equilibrium of mind. And so I have to, in simple terms, seek God in everything. And if you're living in the head, then you have to say, feel God in everything, feel God in all things. That means there has to be a recognition of it. And that recognition has to come from philosophy. So we were discussing earlier, what is philosophy, what is psychology, and so on. What is the difference? Well, psychology is the practical way that you will stabilize the mind, but philosophy provides the entrenched principles and also the reflective practices that are necessary. That is how to shift the mind. And why should we shift the mind? If we don't see any reason why we should do these things, then we won't do them. And if we take this world just at face value and register it just as the lower expressions of this divine prakriti, then we'll be in some trouble. We have to look further and see the deeper portions of it. So nature has more than what we see. And when we register finally the final datum, that is what we call Atman. When we peel away all the different layers of our experience, how do we know something exists? The eyes see it, all right? They see a multiple field in front. The eye represents a single unit. But we can observe the eyeball, see whether it's scratchy one day, refreshed the next. What is the thing that is observing it? When philosophy takes us introspectively inward, yesterday we were studying the Katha Upanishad, we're giving an introduction to it. So you can see here, I put it on the board here, the fourth principle here. See, apprehension through Adhyatma yoga, we were discussing this earlier. That is looking internally, taking for granted I exist, then inquiring what is that, and making an internal investigation until we come across an entity that remains as an observing datum. Go on.
Okay, you just made a point that you should look beyond what is apparent to us.
Yeah.
For instance, you said lower levels of the nature. We are just saying that we have to transcend to the higher levels. So how do you do that?
See, beyond the horizon also means internally. See, we're always thinking externally. So if you look out to sea, you'll see a horizon there. Then you ask, what's beyond the horizon? All these explorers who ventured outside in all parts of the world, You see the Indus Valley civilization.
So the answer is within. That's what you're trying to say.
Yes,
Yeah.
but still, there's a limitation. To each level, there's a limitation.
How do
And
we
so-
transcend that?
And so beyond in that sense.
Okay.
But that beyond means beyond the horizon of the physical body is the mind. Beyond the horizon of the mind is the intellect. Beyond the horizon of the intellect is the agency of ego. And beyond the horizon of that is the area of bliss. And beyond the horizon of that, now we have that entity, something like the sun beaming outwards.
That's Ananda, bliss.
Yes, but that bliss now is self-contained. In other words, it's its nature itself. Because that Atman has these same three characteristics that Brahman has.
So in a layman's term, just like in response to her question was, how do we overcome these mood swings, sometimes low, sometimes the same? So if we can bring our mind to meditate and look within, not necessarily.
No, it's to re-register. We have to revalue everything to God's account, not my account.
Okay, so even
In other
so,
words,
if I'm feeling low, I'll say, it's God has made me feel low. That's why. How do you come to terms with and accept it? Okay, not be perturbed with what I'm feeling like, you know.
So we have this tendency to think that God is out. Out of the window. Right.
You want something?
With water.
So to use the example
Water.
that I normally give,
Or maybe it's
and this comes after a long time of deliberation.
oh,
Right.
I think it's okay to
No, so
discuss this.
Will this help? A little bit of water, Swami?
Just a little bit. I didn't put too much.
Yeah, but it might be difficult
Yeah,
for him to
we'll
write
depend
after
on-
that.
okay, that's
Yeah.
enough.
Okay.
So we have this tendency, I used this diagram before, simple things. We have this tendency to put I here and God here.
Yeah.
So any
Our God is
question,
not heaven.
why did God put me here, is not a good question. We ourselves exported God and put him here. We said, please stand here while I continue here. I have a lot of work to do here, and I have to deal with an environment. And I'm not necessarily happy with that environment because my sense of nostalgia takes me home. I wish I was in Romania. Romania, the food is good, it's suitable to me. Everything is sunny, all my relatives are there. What a beautiful place. And every time I think of that, I think of my happy childhood, etc., etc., etc. Now I'm in a strange place, the food is different, etc., etc. All this is an internal dialogue. All of this is you speaking to yourself. You have to change the dialogue. Instead of talking in this way, you have to talk in a different way. So what is the advantage of being in this country? What is why am I here? I'm here because of spiritual growth, because the only purpose and reason for our existence is to realize the ultimate truth and to obtain, as it were, our freedom. And the situation here was a result of your own thinking. So it's not that you should change your environment, you should change your thinking.
Right.
When you change your thinking, you take God from here, instead of exporting him there to the nether regions, possibly Romania, you take this away and you put God inside here. All right, now you imported God. Now God is inside everything. God is within everything. Now, if we understand this, then life becomes a little different. And as we advance in this particular attitude, as we now practice more and more the presence of this divinity, this God, as God becomes big, our world becomes small. And we see no difference between all the things in nature. From the human point of view, God's power seems separate from God. But when we investigate this nature properly, we see it's exactly the same, just the other side of the coin. Yeah. Ramakrishna puts it like this: Nitya on the one side, Leela on the other. then we take it as God's play, isn't it? Or God's play of waves. The more we do that, the more we take this boundary away. Yeah. And when we take this boundary away, we're only left with this one thing, God. And when we finally take this I away, we're only left with God. That's it. We can do this progressively. So the second question arises, we'll deal more with that. The second question arises, see? Once you understand your own divinity, this internal self as a poised entity, as opposed to a separate person. I'll give you another example like this, my typical example that you're all familiar with now. So this is the bubble in which we decide to live. And this we put here. All right, I know you lost weight. We call this I. And funny enough, we call this my mind. It's a misnomer because there's only one mind. And that is, there's only one thinker, cosmic mind. That is right at the top of this hierarchy of nature. And then we have to put this others, people, places, events, call it others. We are represented something like the sun is here, giving life. And then our strategy then becomes like this. How do we deal with this environment? It's only, you see, the only way we evaluate this environment is from this small bubble area. Now, earlier we were discussing the value of Om and 4 states of consciousness. One is not a state. 3 states of consciousness we can put it. This is a great value for our spiritual life. Because normally, in a dualistic religion, we have to now progress toward a non-dualistic understanding of things. In dualistic religion, we think that we have to purchase a ticket. So we have to purchase a ticket to, let us say, a cinema show. And we purchase our ticket, and then we expect a response. Your ticket allocated, 2417. Please go and collect it from the ticket office, and your seat is reserved for you. Most religions think like that. Please reserve a ticket for me in heaven. My seat is this. It's completely reserved. And in heaven, I'll be fine. In heaven, I'll have none of these difficulties. Even Romanian food will be available in heaven. This is the way most dualistic religions think. This is the Vedanta philosophy will lead you away from that. It'll say, no, my dear person. Your real nature stands here. You are an observer. You are a thinker. You are a knower. This is your I. Please stand here. When you stand here, this becomes different. And when you stand here and see this as just the lower part of nature, the rest of nature responds. And all these forces of nature, these waves and oscillations that combine and recombine automatically to produce this, your world, all of these are dragged in by your thinking. Thought is a suction. It brings everything into audio. So when we stimulate this thought by a resolve and intention, if we don't suitably annihilate it or neutralize it with a counter thought, it will sustain itself. It becomes the world here, and we register it as the lower portion of this mother nature. There is no difference between this nature and this God. The only thing is this. When we sit fully in this entity, that is here, all this disappears. It's gone. It's no longer there. Now there's a passage in the Bhagavad Gita, and it comes from a questioner here. So we'll deal with that passage and see how it relates to all of this. Because this is not the only state of being. Another state of being is also here. That also has this, but it has this also. Here I can be a king with a queen in a palace and live for 1,000 years. Time has an extended meaning here. In this we have time and space and causation. In here too, we have same components, time, space, and causation. The only difference is I can live for 1,000 years here. And instead of having one ego here, all of this becomes multiple egos. All of this is part and parcel of the dream. What we call this dream. When we do a dream course, we bring this out. What is dream? Well, all of this now is coming from this one consciousness, coming out like this. And so that is why we do a dream interpretation course, because it is this entity plus this time, space, and causation giving you an unconscious message. Come on, my child. Attend to this, attend to that. And as you're sleeping here, as this disappears and didn't get a visa to come across here, and this stands alone, then I will also be a repairer. I'll repair all the cells of the body. I'll renew everything for renewed thinking. And I'll reincarnate here in this waking state and give you extra pocket money for useless thinking. So then this also yields here to a dreamless sleep. And here there is no time, no space, no causation. There's only a sense of peace. We can recall, I had a peace. This observer here is the fourth, what do you call Turiya? Turiya means fourth. So don't think that your world is only here. Vedanta philosophy tells you, also here, but in order to register all this, I have to stand here. Now let us see what this passage says. So the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita gives this passage. This is stanza 18 for those who want to follow us. Karmaniya karma yaha, pashyad akarmani cha karma yaha. Sa buddhima manusyeshu sa yuktaha kritsna karma kriti. So he who sees what? In action. This is not active. In all this activity, action. And action as a manifestation of this inaction. He is wise among people. That is a yogi. Yogi means somebody who has a sense of unity, who understands the unity of things. The word yoga comes from two roots. Yaj and yajir, to join and concentrate. And both mean the same thing. When my faculty of attention joins to its object, then the truth yields itself to me. Truth about what? Truth about anything. Truth about the external world, truth about the internal world, truth about the psychological condition, and truth about my own self. It all comes out. I have to steer the attention in a proper way. And that means part and parcel of that is when I do that, I observe things much more correctly. And when I do that, a sense of appreciation grows in me for where I am. Where I am is where God stands. It's not an exported entity standing outside. You bring it inside, you see, where I stand, that Lord stands also. Not a stranger to me. Not only stands, but expresses itself as this whole region here. When I stop thinking of that, when I start thinking of that, I stop thinking of, oh, what a pity, and replace it with, what a glory. Seeing that entity everywhere, what a glory. So he is a wise among men, and more than that, he is a yogi and an accomplisher of everything. It's not that he stands idle. Seeing the glory here, he then takes an approach, because this doesn't accomplish anything. This doesn't act, this doesn't move, this beams. And because of its presence, all this comes. We can collectively call this God's dream. We take it as our reality. When we revalue things, called spiritual practice, when we do that, then we get closer to this understanding, and all these regrets disappear here. We now have a way of dealing with this in a practical way.
Swami,
And we no longer think that this religious practice is equivalent to purchasing ticket 2417 in heaven. Reserve my seat there. Go on.
on a sort of practical level, then is it?
There's nothing more practical than this.
Yeah.
Don't think that this is practical and this is not. This is where your problem. This is a problematic area. We can relabel this.
That's because it's desire and fear generated.
That's yes, because
and ignorance.
Yes, because
ignorance is the root there.
Yeah, because this is our horizon. We didn't look further than this.
Yeah, I was thinking that the reason I was sort of thinking about the observer or the witness, and that the reason we can't stay with the witness and realize our witness is because we've got desires and fears. And the reason we've got our desires and fears is because we feel our mind is telling us we're incomplete, that we need something to fill us. Because when Swami started, he started with a definition of desire that seemed to me very practical and understanding and understandable, that desire is when we feel incomplete, and fear in a way is coming out of incompleteness. And that we think that if X happens, we're threatened because we're identifying with our body-mind complex. That's who we think we are, and that is our ignorance and our conditioned thing. And yoga, the preliminary steps in yoga is sort of cleaning us up of that. It's sort of a cleansing thing.
So another way of putting this is, when we put ourselves in this small bubble, it's like a book. We have 3 pages we can turn, and we only decide to stick on 1 page. And then we complain, life is a bit dull. I've read this many times. Now I have to read it again. I still don't understand what it is. Why don't you read the whole book? So this is called relativity of perception. And it must be applied. We have to learn to shift our observation point. And shift here. We can call this blissful base. At this point, there is no unhappiness. There's no dissatisfaction. Desires don't happen here. So that is it. Now this Bhagavad Gita passage comes in a whole context. So let us examine the context. And the context actually begins with the 16th stanza. So in the 16th stanza, we say, even the rishis are perplexed as to what is action and what is inaction. Because as soon as I make an identification here, this becomes an agent. So that's a difficult subject. And therefore, says Krishna, he says, I shall tell you what action is, by knowing which you will be freed from evil. Evil in this case means all the events that occur because of my attachment and desire standing here. All right. So now in the Bhagavad Gita, where the mode changes, we know there's something significant coming. And so the mode of the verse changes. It goes like this. Karmano hyapi bodhivyam bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha akarmanascha bodhatvam gahana karmano gatiha. So truly the nature of right action, the things that we should do, should be understood as also that of forbidden action and of inaction. 3 things are there. How do we get out of this? We have to do things which are liberating. In other words, things devoid of egoism, things devoid of selfishness. Morality is simply the absence of selfishness. When you take away selfishness, you're doing the highest good. And that involves strength as well. And what is the opposite of that? Where selfishness is there. And selfish is equivalent to say, I am this body-mind complex. That's equivalent. And I'm simply acting out of this understanding. All right. When you stand here and beam and make the ego an open channel for divine grace everywhere, then that becomes different. That becomes liberating. It will not be a direct liberator. It'll be a psychological process of purifying the mind. So any action that purifies the mind, we should engage in. All right. Then there is also the question of forbidden action. Things that we know are evil. There are some obvious examples. If we want to murder somebody, if we murder somebody, it's clear that is not a good thing to do. But how different is it if you think it? That person, I could just murder that person. See, like that. We might even use it. We have an expression, I don't know if it's the same in Romanian. I could murder whatever this particular dish is.
They say that's normal to drink.
So actually sitting with us here, we have somebody who enjoys not just Indian food, the Bengali cuisine, somebody who enjoys Estonian cuisine, and somebody who enjoys Irish cuisine. That's easy. It's just multiple variations of potatoes, and you're all finished.
Estonia is not much different.
And somebody is used to Zimbabwean cuisine. Okay. So you see, it's forbidden action. That means the thought. There's no action without a thought. As soon as I think it happens. And of inaction. Inaction means let me not do anything. There is an argument, philosophical argument that says, if my true nature is non-dual, if my true nature is one without a second, if I'm not involved in any of this, then I should just do nothing. But you see, even there, that laziness of doing nothing is still a doing. And so that's tamas. All right, tamasic action and divine action. Hard to understand is the way of karma. What is karma? The way of sowing and reaping my own destiny. Is another way of saying the way of directing my thought in such a way that I manufacture a suitable environment for the best. That's the idea. And then comes that verse. You sees action in action, in action, in action.
That is only Nishkam karma.
Yes. So then the next is, and the theme continues. The theme actually continues to the 22nd stanza. So he whose undertakings are all free from design, planning. You see, there's a passage. There's something that Ramakrishna himself is saying. See, don't plan anything. Let God, let the mother plan it for you. Why do you want to plan anything? Looking to the future, what will it present? Anxiety. All right. And then regretting in the past. I wish I was in Romania. See? So that creates sorrow and difficulty also. Creates doubt and painfulness as well. And creates this desire, this hankering, instead of standing where God stands here and now. See that definition by Joel Goldsmith I bring out on the meditation workshop. The most useful, one of the most useful and beautiful phrases. He puts it as a definition of meditation, a song of gratitude. That God is here, God is now, God is love. If we didn't catch it, then we'll think of what a pity. If we catch it, we'll say, what a glory.
Yeah, right.
See the difference?
Swami,
So having abandoned, let's complete this. And whose actions are burnt up by the fire of knowledge. Him the sage is called wise. We were discussing earlier what is knowledge. Knowledge is the same as wisdom. Different levels of knowledge are there. Knowledge about the external world is useful. But more useful is knowledge about the internal world. That is also useful. It's called psychology. But knowledge about oneself, that is called wisdom.
That is philosophy.
They're called wisdom. You know about yourself. All this Vedanta philosophy is leading you to this Aham Brahmasmi position. Right? That. And Tattvamasi, all those Mahavakyas. They're leading you to that. All right. So having abandoned attachment to the fruits of action, that is what's meant. To results. Looking out the window. Even spiritually. Is God, does God, not God hasn't come yet. Peeping. Peeping should be banned. You see. So this expectation is there. Oh, God is not here. Oh, change my guru, change my religion, etc. All right. Having abandoned attachment to the fruits of action, ever content. Now, there's your formula. Cultivate contentment. Contentment is equivalent, in my view, to thankfulness. You see that phrase, count your blessings.
Yeah.
How many times should we count your blessings? Continuously. If you do it continuously, because if you observe things correctly, see that Oates formula, if you appreciate them, when you observe them, you will then appreciate them. If you didn't observe them correctly, this observation is called viveka.
Yeah.
Looking at things in a discerning way, seeing the reality. And then once that is there, an equivalent to seeing God. And then naturally there's an appreciation. Automatically, unasked, a sense of thankfulness comes. So we have to cultivate this. And depending on nothing, though engaged in action, yet does not do anything because it's standing here. I'm not the doer.
Seeing non-action in action.
Yeah, because I'm not the doer.
Okay.
I'm not the actor. If I see this actionless entity, yet still engage in action, knowing this, that is the way.
And what about seeing non-action, seeing action in non-action?
Yes, because this only works because this is here. Without this, this doesn't operate.
That is, yes, that is a theoretical and practical level. How do I see action in non-action?
See God. If you see God, God is equivalent in philosophy to self. If you see that immortal self in awe, is that self acting?
Oh, okay.
No, it's actionless.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then it just goes on and just conclude, and I'll take your question here. So free from longing, that is from craving. It is craving that causes us the difficulty. With body and mind controlled. You ask, what should I do? It is there. Then you'll say, it's not easy. Yeah, that's your problem. Make it, make it easy. How do you make it easy? You make it easy by deleting future and the past and seeing what is here now. And putting your appreciation here and now with body and mind controlled, giving up all sense of possession because it's not yours. It doesn't belong to you. Yeah. Nothing belongs to you.
Nothing belongs to us, right.
He incurs no sin. You see, we have the same, my body, my mind, my this, my house.
Mm-hmm.
All right. On your deathbed, you can't say it because you're giving it all up. We think it's such a tragedy. I was saying yesterday, when people die, pass away, they say. Well, yes, you should have no room to grieve because you're losing one person. That person is losing a bank account, house, relatives, country, Romanian food, everything is all gone. All right. He incurs no sin by merely performing bodily actions. You perform the actions. Don't sit there and saying, I'm the actionless one. And then it comes here like this. It begins. Cha lava, satisfied with what comes to him without effort, effortlessly. Because as soon as you let go, The flow comes to you the minute you mobilize a thought. Confidently, you're mobilizing all the rest. At the lower level, you're mobilizing all the rest of nature. The power of God, you're mobilizing, making your body, making your resources, making your environment unaffected by the pairs of opposites. What does it matter? Cold, hot? The place I was staying in Bantry, an apology. I'm sorry, the hot water doesn't come out. I said, don't worry, I don't use it. Free from jealousy. Jealousy means, you see, this sitting here in the ego and wishing that you were like this here. Even-minded in success or failure. Though acting, he is not bound. That kind of thing. All right, so now, if you look at all these qualities, those who've done the Enneagram, what you'll see is all of these particular vices coming out and the virtues to combat them. That is why we start this process with the Enneagram, to see your ego is not a standard thing. It's not a standard thing. It's a tailor-made thing. It's individual. Each one has a different one. And each one has to deal with it, therefore, differently. So that is it. All right, so that's that section. You had a...
could you say something, Swami? I was just, maybe this is too theoretical, but the witness, it's like the witness really isn't in time, space, and causation, but yet, you know, the witness is here and now, you know.
That's what you think. That's your misunderstanding.
Yeah. Could you say something about that?
Yes, yeah. Sure. Yes. You see, the trouble is when I don't stand here, when I stand here. Yeah. Then I say, I am watching this. I'm only the witness of this. But when I stand here, I'm the witness of all of this. And when I stand here, you see, if I'm an observer, there has to be a second thing to observe.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like that. In meditation, ultimately, meditation gives me this opportunity by taking this aspect and making another thing here, like this, like that. It looks like somebody with eyes and smiling. Don't worry about it. Okay. Then you see, this is a meditation also. Meditation. But all these events here, I can plan. And when I plan that, that should lead me to a sense of suspension, where all of this goes. This simply is a leading thing. It's like preparing a runway for a flight. Having prepared a runway for a flight step by step, then I lead myself to this, in which case all of this is gone. None of this here. All of this is finished. So this can go here. This can go. I'm not going to rub the whole thing. You rub it out to yourself in your own life. Okay?
Can I say something?
Yes.
This saying comes to mind, dwelling in God's house.
Yeah.
You know, when you do things for yourself in life, you won't be happy for things, but if you only do it for God.
No, don't rub the observer out. Keep it there. But you see, you can do that because, see, when all of this is gone, there's nothing to observe. It's not fair to say witness if there's nothing to witness. Yeah. Only pure being is there. That's all. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
No,
yeah.
It was just this saying, dwelling in God's house.
Yeah.
If you perceive your life as a guest of God,
yes,
all you do, you only do.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah. So it requires revaluing things. Is this a body? If you say it's my body, I, me, etc., etc., why not say it's God's earth car? Why not say the mind is God's sitting room, his throne room, where you can sit also? Why do you say that all these environments are there, external to me, instead of saying that all these are glorious waves of God's power. And that can be mobilized through divine thinking. So I hope that answers all your questions. All right, we have 15 minutes more. You have to. Okay, good. All right. So the question is like this. So is it best to pray for desire of God instead of worldly desires? Answer is yes. Should we drop worldly desires completely and allow God to lead? The answer is yes. Okay. You want me to expand on that, or is that sufficient? I think you came to your own conclusion when you wrote that question.
Thank you, Swami. Okay.
All right. Okay. All good. We have to hammer home, I am the constant observer. That has to be hammered home. It can't be reduced by any form of discount. So nothing can be added to it, nothing can be taken away from it. It is full, it is fullness itself. So when you ask this question, then where do I go when I die? You can't, the question is an irrelevancy, but it's a common question. Where do I go when I die? So I might have a sentiment that I'll die and go somewhere because I have a ticket. I think I said number 2417. I have no idea why I said that, but that reserved ticket is there. That's the idea. No, it's not like that, because there's no death here in this philosophy, nor is there any birth. There is no coming, there is no going. And the funniest part about it is, you see, am I inside the body? No, that concept also is not there. There is a theological concept, perhaps, that the soul is inside a body. So that if the soul is my truly intrinsic eye, when I look up, I might see the epiglottis or something, look down and see the, or look around and I see the rib structure, and the liver off to one side, the kidneys behind. And then I look down and see, oh, there the legs are there, and so on and so forth. So, of course, it's not like that. It's not inside a cage. And the question, who brought me inside this cage? And that's the theory of karma comes in. In this system, there's no karma like that. There's no incarnation, no reincarnation. Nothing is born, nothing lives, nothing dies. It's just an eternal being. We get used to that idea. These questions go away. The anxiety, concern, what will happen when I die? And what about my good karma or my bad karma? Am I here because of my bad karma? No. I am never born, I am never dying. Nor am I reborn. The answer that some people have objected to, including brother monks, that when somebody asks you about karma, do you believe in reincarnation? And I say, why would I? I don't believe in this incarnation. Why would I believe in another one? So, no, that's not useful to people. Yes, it has to be. We have to learn to shift our position to understand this fully. So there's one entity. This whole universe is packed energy. We have to get used to that idea. Science also understands it. When we blast the atom, the whole thing is full of radiation or energy. And these energies come in different ways. So by now you know what they are. There is, first of all, what is described, unfortunately, as ether, agasha. It comes out and gives us the capacity to hear, provides the bifurcation of the hearing faculty, ultimately combines into the gross hearing faculty. So the capacity to hear and the capacity for sound all around, that is wave systems, oscillations. Science has now maintained this, that the whole of this material universe can be reduced to energetic oscillations. This is officially called virtual particles in a quantum field. It is intellectually represented, but in reality not understood because it is so subtle. And then that automatically combines and recombines into what is usually called vayu, something that is called air, or air that is something that moves rapidly, and it bifurcates into all pressures and all skins that feel it. And that combines and recombines into Agni, usually called that. That is all radiation. That is all things that are observed with form and color, and all eyes that catch it. It's useless having eyes if there's nothing to catch. It's useless having ears if there's nothing to catch. It's useless having skin and nothing to catch. And then again, we find a grosser form of this, a more lower combined aspect of it. And this is called essentially all odors and smells and scents, all things that are carried through that air, and all noses that catch it, or the capacity to smell everything. Something like, see, magnetism, that's at the end of it. And in between, all liquid things, all water, all tastes, and all tongues and mouths that can catch it. There's no point in having a mouth and taste if there's nothing, no object to taste. And then this lower portion comes out as our world. We didn't register it correctly. We only registered the surface of it. We register it properly and see all these forces combine. This is God's divine power seen by us in this way. And all of this through a framework of time and space and causation. When you take all of that away, when it all disappears by itself, through this supreme realization, then that becomes the revelation of this oneness. What is the practical application of it? No wars, no conflicts, no dissatisfactions, no desires, no bifurcations, no separateness, no jealousies. None of these can possibly exist and possible for them to exist for that sphere of oneness. All right. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, 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 peace.